I had a thought after being in a conversation with somebody else to do shoutouts for YouTubers who are particularly educational. Now, a few things that you should know going into this. One, my experience with educational YouTubers isn't that wide. These are YouTubers who I found while looking up my other interests who just happen to have educational value to their videos. I do not intentionally go around looking up educational YouTubers. I look up YouTubers who review TV shows and movies and animation and video games and do Let's Plays and so forth. And they just end up being a little more educational than others who do the same thing. I don't go around seeking educational YouTubers. And people like Huey Tumor and Lutunes, while being very knowledgeable about one subject, they're knowledgeable about one subject. I'm not going to highlight people who educate about pop culture, as that really has a more narrow appeal to only the people from that recent era or, that one particular thing. A person who goes on about Pokemon all day long and educates about Pokemon games isn't going to be as worthy of being on this list as someone who educates about all video games from all different consoles and different eras. Likewise, someone who educates about just video games won't be as hugely bigly on this list as someone who educates about technology in general. So what I'm basically saying is that the broader the interest, the more likely you are to be on the list. One is the Alternate History Hub. The Alternate History Hub is a fun little what-if series where we asked ourselves the question, what if such and such happened or never happened, and how would the chain of events affect history throughout the whole timeline leading up to modern day? What would change because of certain things happening or not happening, and how would that affect us now?
We all know the history of the Civil War. South secedes, war begins, South loses. A few days after the war, Lincoln would be shot in the back of the head by Confederate sympathizer John Wilkes Booth. The presidency, Reconstruction effort, and the fate of the South were now in the hands of Andrew Johnson. So going back to our original question, what if Lincoln had survived being assassinated? What would Lincoln have done differently that Johnson wouldn't have? So in this alternate scenario, there is never a plot to assassinate the president. Lincoln never has an attempt on his life, and so he remains president up until 1869. Because of this, the first few years of Reconstruction would be entirely in Lincoln's hands.
It's never anything that can be proven, and it's all hypothetical and for good fun, but it does give you quite a lot of history. Because before each what-if event, the host likes to catch you up on the history and the events that unfolded up to that particular point, and then we discuss the change and why that change would have a major impact on the world. This is a series that answers questions like, what if JFK had never been assassinated? What if communism never rose in Russia? What if dinosaurs had survived extinction? And so forth. The next one that I'm looking at is Zoret Goes On. This is a person who started out as a Let's Player of the very long, sometimes tedious, very nature-based video game Endless Ocean 2. This video game involves you diving underwater as a scuba diver and exploring the mysteries of the deep. watched. What he does during these videos, however, is whenever you encounter a new species or a new artifact, he takes a step away from the Let's Play and he gives you a little more information about what you're watching.
Mola mola, also known as the ocean sunfish, are the world's heaviest known bony fish, with adults averaging 1,000 kilograms or 2,200 pounds. They're large fish, averaging almost 6 feet long. Their distinctive fins make them taller than they are long in some cases.
The LPR who's running this series is actually a real-life marine biologist and has a great deal of scientific information, as well as a little collection of footage. Either stock footage that he's able to show copyright-free or footage that he filmed himself. I'm not entirely certain, but what he does give is a lot of scientifically accurate information about animals and artifacts that either expands on what the game is telling you or corrects something that the game got wrong. The next thing on this list is List 25. It's a top 25 countdown of the world's most fill-in-the-blank. Like 25 things you didn't know about mammals, or 25 things you didn't know about spiders, or 25 things you didn't know about holidays, or 25 things that make the universe interesting, or whatever. Just 25 things that you maybe didn't know about stuff that makes learning this list more interesting. It always lists lots of very fascinating facts, many of which my brain doesn't retain, but it's still a great source for learning about stuff, and it comes up in conversation a lot when you talk about things that you might recall having heard something about something or another from List 25.
22. Bedbugs. Bedbugs are small, oval, brownish insects that live on the blood of other animals and humans. Though they are not known to transmit any diseases, bedbugs are known to be the cause of allergic reactions, skin rashes, and even psychological effects, with the latter being the most destructive. Victims of bedbug infestations have been known to suffer from anxiety disorders, depression, stress, and sleep deprivation. Some victims have even resorted to substance abuse, vandalism, and in one particular case, the physical harm of their pet cat as manifestations of their frustration over bedbug infestations.
Electric Dragon 505, better known to most people as Animat. Animat reviews animation. Animat does make him different from people who aren't on the list, but should still be looked up because learning about pop culture is just as interesting, is the fact that Animat dives into a much wider variety of animation and he goes into greater detail for longer episodes.
Welcome back. Our next character is probably the most famous character in the Epic Mickey Files. It doesn't matter if it's a movie, a TV show, a comic book, or even a video game. If Mickey Mouse or somebody from his game is involved in it whatsoever, it's guaranteed that he'll be there. This is Pete.
He doesn't just review movies or react to movies. He also has a series where he dives into the long history of an entire movie or an entire animation studio. He might take up several hours worth of your time throughout multiple videos going over the entire history since its beginning of an animation company like Disney, Pixar, DreamWorks, or many others. He's gone back to the silent era and gone over some of the first animations. He's gone over the stuff from the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and all of the other eras. Most people only focus on what's new and recent and relevant within the past 30 years or so. Most often less than 30 years. Or maybe some people would look at Disney and only Disney, or anime and only anime. Anime covers everything that is any form of animation. He also looks at Muppet related things and goes on and on about the Muppet Studio stuff as well. Next on the list is Game Theory, the series that presents things that are interesting to think about, but are just theories. Game Theories, the series that has everybody quoting that little tagline, and has even spun off into things like films and so forth. There's lots of stuff that's similar to this, like Cinema Sins and Movie Feuds and so forth, but what Game Theory does that makes it a little more educational than, say, Cinema Sins would be, is it presents its arguments backed up by mathematics, science, research, doodling various articles, and highlighting the parts from the articles that help make the argument.
It seems to explain all the core behaviors of a creeper, also known as sphagnum. It's a type of green and black moss that would explain the creeper's coloration. Does it explode? You bet it does. Discharging spores at up to 65 miles per hour, 29 meters per second, in less than 1,000th of a second. That, loyal theorists, is some fast discharge, especially when considering that this plant is only a couple centimeters high. Now scale that up 30 times to creeper size, which is roughly 3 meters, and you have an explosion going from 0 to 1,950 miles per hour in a fraction of a second.
Next one on the list is Dr. Holocaust. This is a guy whose primary function is not education. He does all kinds of sci-fi skits about him being a mad scientist trying to take over the world, but he also does vlogs, especially in April when he takes the Vita Vlog Every Day in April challenge. And this is where the educational stuff comes in, because he has real, actual scientific knowledge. He's a real-life scientific doctor, and he knows a lot of stuff about science, he knows a lot of stuff about history, about politics, about a great many things, and he has a lot of scientific different perspectives on how the world could be better if you did things a certain way. He knows a lot of stuff about what inventions have come out, what steps in science have been moved forward, and other things like that. So if you watch his Vita vlogs or any of his other major vlog videos, and not so much his other stuff, his more story-driven stuff, you'll get a good deal of interesting educational information about science or history or whatever.
Dear Doc, since you're not so keen on leaving Earth behind, will you fund research to let us live and exploit resources under the ocean? I assume you mean fun? Yeah, it's true, there are more areas of this world that are covered in very deep water than there are areas of this world that are dry land. And I imagine there are a great deal of resources under the sea, but really getting under the sea is going to be about as easy as getting into space. A lot of the equipment that you need to survive in either environment is actually relatively similar because you're dealing with an extreme pressure or lack thereof, and, you know, no air, and a great number of other things. So living at the bottom of the ocean is certainly possible, but not feasible yet. Again, I really want to focus on fixing our current space before we decide to do things like go to the moon or go to Mars or live under the sea.